Welcome to the Veterinary Marketing Podcast, where it's all about helping your veterinary practice attract, engage, and retain clients. Broadcasting a new podcast every Monday from sunny Southern California, here's your host, Brandon Bashirs.
Hey there, everybody. Welcome to episode number 200 of the Veterinary Marketing Podcast. Today we're going to have a special episode because it is the 200th episode. I can't believe it. It is crazy to think back. Today we're going to talk about changes that are happening to the podcast, the format for the podcast, what it's going to be in it for you, and how this is going to continue to help your practice, I hope. I'm also going to be sharing with you 3 things that I think are extremely, extremely important as we move through this very difficult time that everybody's having right now, and it's only going to get more difficult, I'm sure. So it's going to be very, very helpful, applicable to what you're doing right now, today, and in the future too. I mean, this is going to be really good stuff. But first of all, I just want to say thank you so much for listening to the podcast. I really appreciate it. It's been incredible. It's been super fulfilling. I would have never imagined that I would have met so many amazing people, gotten so many incredible opportunities, and just it's been such a blessing. And I just want to say thank you to so many people for listening to the podcast, to supporting the podcast, and being a member of the Veterinary Marketing Facebook group, in that community there, and just a really heartfelt thank you to everybody here. So if you're listening to this podcast, thank you for being in this audience and a member of this group and community. I really appreciate you. The veterinary industry is amazing. There are so many awesome people in here, and I just feel very fortunate to work with all of you, and it's just amazing. So thank you a million times, and I hope that the next 200 episodes will be even better, and I am really excited to share some things with you here on today's podcast. So let's just jump right into it. So a few things that I think are going to be more important as we move forward. And the podcast, I'm going to continue to be putting out content and episodes as long as I feel like it's giving value. And I think that right now, more than ever, people need specific direction with ads as it becomes increasingly more difficult and complicated. I think people need a lot more help with sales and sales processes, because that's kind of a bad word in the industry. The word sales is, not necessarily something that's good. So we're going to be talking about sales language and sales in general. Now, I'm not saying you're going to have to become a salesperson, but I'm going to talk about different ways to approach selling products and services that will help you to get in the mindset of actually selling things, and not just hoping that the clients do what you're hoping that they do, right? So taking it out of that realm of hope into here's what our strategy is for getting people to comply with these different recommendations that we're making in practice. So that's one thing. And really, I think the whole goal of this podcast in general, and moving forward, the way that it's going to continue, is that I want to help 10,000 practices over the next 10 years double their practice. And so I've decided, specifically when I talk about doing any kind of marketing or content creation, it has to have a purpose behind it. And so far, the purpose has been, in general, just to help veterinary professionals attract, engage, and retain clients. And so that's definitely a good general goal. But the thing that I would like to do is to put a number on it so that I can know if I'm achieving that goal, and it helps me to track and measure it. So I chose 10,000 because it seemed like a pretty big number, and I chose over the next 10 years because it gives enough time for me to help them grow and double their practice. Now, maybe doubling isn't maybe doubling the number of patients you see isn't your goal, but you could double the revenue of your practice, and so make more per patient could be a goal of that. Ultimately, what I want this podcast to be is just a tremendous resource that is going to help you really change the fate and future of your practice so that it goes in a positive direction. I love working with veterinary professionals And ultimately, veterinary professionals are small business owners. And that's the world that I come from. I haven't shared this before, but growing up, my parents were general contractors. And so they were in a business where they would work on their business and they would work in their business. And especially when they started out, it's probably very similar to how veterinary practices are, where you have a million things to be doing and a million things to be running. And so what ends up happening is you get really busy with work and you're working in your business, kind of like an employee of the business. And then what happens is you finish a job or you maybe have a slow season and then you're like, oh geez, it's slow. Now what do I have to do? I have to go get more clients. And so it's a constant vicious cycle of oscillating between being so busy you have no time for anything and then a slowdown where, oh geez, now we're in panic mode. We need to go out and get clients. And my parents, they were extremely hard workers. Like I know so many people in the veterinary industry are. And they poured their blood, sweat, and tears into building their business. But they didn't have consistent ways to drive clients coming in. And so they would always be working in their business and then on their business until later on down the road when they were able to get and, you know, grow in success and learn these different things. But it was definitely a struggle. And I remember as a kid growing up seeing this and just knowing, you know, that it seemed like it was always the slow season around Christmas and in wintertime because they were builders and home builders and stuff. And so it's probably very similar for veterinary practices. When things start to slow down and you start to worry about, oh no, we don't have, you know, clients coming in, we need to figure out what to do. My hope is that with this podcast, you're going to be able to really build systems that deliver consistent quality clients, the kinds that you love working with, into your practice all the time so that you're not in a situation where you're getting a slowdown. Right now it is May 15th when this is being published, and it's crazy to think about this, but this winter of 2020 is going to be a make it or break it winter for your practice. You know, we're already seeing historic unemployment levels. This is going to start to catch up. And it's going to start to be just really, it's going to get real for a lot of practices. And so my goal is that you not only survive through this next season of really strange economic times and weird times, that you're going to thrive and be able to grow and take this volatility as an opportunity to really create the practice that you've always wanted to have and connect and engage with clients that you can choose to work with, that you don't have to work with, so that you're taking the kinds of work and the kinds of clients that really energize you, energize your practice, and help you to be profitable and create the growth that you're looking to create. So that's ultimately the different things that we're going to be focusing here on inside of the podcast, which is we're going to continue to talk about marketing principles. We're going to continue to talk about marketing strategies. We're going to talk about sales and sales processes when that comes to talking to clients on the phone, converting clients in a online format, whether it's through different apps or web forms or things like that. We're going to talk about specific tools, whether it's softwares, ad tools, ad platforms, things like that. And then we're also going to start adding a lot more case studies here because I think that that's really valuable. Case studies are really the key to understanding what's working for different people. So we're going to have great guests on that are practice owners, practice managers, marketing people that are going to give us insight through case studies on what's working right now for them in their practice so that you can take those things and duplicate their success. So that's ultimately where the podcast is going to be going for the next foreseeable future. I really love that I've been able to connect with so many people. If you haven't connected with me, if you listen to this podcast, I would just love to hear from you. Be sure to join the Facebook group, the Veterinary Marketing Nerds. And I wanted to share 3 things that I think are going to be incredibly important for your practice in helping you to continue growing and so that your practice is on offense instead of defense, and you're not being reactive, but you're being proactive here. So let's talk about these 3 things that I think are really, really important. First, in this situation where we're having, undoubtedly we'll have economic slowdown here, And I know a lot of practices are busy right now, but as unemployment starts to catch up and people start to spend less money like they did in 2008, it's important that you have more expertise in the eyes of the clients. And so what does that mean? First of all, you need to be able to share insight. And the way that you're going to do that is through content, right? But a lot of times I think people are sharing content through the lens of sharing either news or just general content rather than insight. But we need to take the content that you're sharing and put it through the lens of why this is important in your opinion. So, people talk about some of the same topics over and over again, but what are the different things that you can do to spin it in a way that makes it really insightful? When people see news, for example, let's say you're just sharing, for example, a news story about COVID-19 infecting cats or something, right? And let's say you're just sharing an article. When somebody looks at that, they immediately kind of put it through their spam filter. And so they say, okay, this is a piece of news. I'm going to take a look at it. And it just basically goes through the spam filter. If you went and then you created your own content where you basically just parroted the info that's been put out there and you're saying, hey, my name is Dr. So-and-so. I wanted to talk to you about these updates here. That is the higher level of content to be putting out, because then instead of putting it through a spam filter, they're going to either decide to pay attention to you and what you're saying, or they're going to unsubscribe or just ignore your content. So it's like a definitely a higher level of consideration there. But the third option is to share insights. So why is this important? How is this going to help them? What are the things that they need to be worried about? What are the things that you're concerned about? Talk about the clients that you're concerned about. Talk about the repercussions of this locally for their pets. When you start to put content out in giving insightful content that is valuable to them because it is coming from you, it positions you as the expert. And then when there's content that's insightful instead of just content that's putting out more information, it gives people the opportunity to reflect on it, and then they either share it or forward it. And if you think about the content that you've shared on Facebook, typically it's probably something that's more insightful rather than just content that's informational. We have an excess of information, but people need to know, why is this important to them? What are the things that they should be looking at? And so do that extra step of work for them. They're going to be able to really benefit from all of that. And it's going to give people a lot more just reason to follow you. And when you are able to produce content that's insightful, that they expect that from you, your expertise goes up. And so they consider you to be an expert, so they're going to look at you as a thought leader in the area. And I think it's important that you consider yourself a thought leader, because you have a lot more insight and training and things that are going to be able to, elevate you above and beyond all of the other information that's out there. So not only that, you're going to be able to share great information as well, and it's going to help to really give people the right info that they're going to need. So that's one thing that I think being very important, is that you're creating content that is insightful. Number two is that I think we need to start really creating more specific content. So I think that most practices have, maybe 20, 25 questions that are pretty common. And in general, I think you need to have, especially if the questions are more complicated, you need to have formed opinions about those topics, whether it's diets, behavior, procedures, treatment options, whatever it is. I think you need to have really formed opinions about what it is that you're offering and why you offer it. This then will play into the expertise kind of situation where you're increasing your expertise in the eyes of the client, because people want to know what to do. It is great to give people options, but people want to know a clear plan and they want to have certainty. And so create formed opinions that are going to help you to be more specific. But then once you have these formed opinions about things, whether it's about diets, for example, or behavior, or all of the different things that people ask questions about, you're able to then create very specific content. So, talking about, okay, let's talk about large dog breeds and the diets that they need to be, we're going to talk about that. Should they be eating raw diets? Should they be eating, fresh foods every day? Like, talking about that. Now you're being specific to large animals, or large dog breeds, right? And so large dog breed owners are going to say, hey, this is really interesting. And I think it's important that you're creating a bunch of specific audiences that you want to be serving, that are parts of the different avatars that you want to be serving. But trying to target every single pet owner in your area is a recipe for just being the same as like a large corporate group, where they have no kind of distinction between who their clients are, and they don't really have a care on who it is that's coming in the door. They just want every single person. If you're going to spend time and energy putting out a piece of content or creating a funnel or doing ads for somebody, you want to make sure it's the right kind of client coming in. And so who is it that you want to be working with, and start to create really specific, valuable information for these different segments. And that's going to help you a ton to really grow the practice in the way that you want to grow it. And I know it's kind of counterintuitive to say, in order to grow, we're going to limit who it is we're targeting, but it's going to make you far more effective. I can't tell you how kind of weird it is, but like, especially in marketing in general, right? If I just said, hey, I do marketing for everyone, it makes it a lot less effective than if I say, hey, I do marketing for veterinary hospitals and I help veterinary practices grow their practice, right? I'm definitely cutting off the kind of known sphere of different businesses that I can work with. But what ends up happening is that people want to work with me because I work with veterinary hospitals. Same thing with your veterinary hospital. If you have just, everybody coming in the door is going to be a potential client, and we don't care if they're looking for discount or they're looking for premium, we just are going to go for everybody in the area. That's not going to help you grow in the way that you want to. So get specific, create many specific audiences, and create content that's going to be valuable for them. The third thing that I think that you need to do to be successful and be on offense here is to create consistent ways to drive people in. I think that it's incredibly important that every practice is running ads and paid traffic. And the reason for that is it is a cheap insurance policy. If you have, let's say you're extremely busy right now, for example. If you're extremely busy right now, fantastic. You should be running ads still. And the reason for that is if things slow down, you're not starting from scratch. It's a cheap insurance policy. If you're running $5, $10 a day, that's $150 to $300 a month. You are paying way more in insurance for other things in your business. If you have a consistent way that you can say, hey, we've been running ads for Vet Near Me searches, we've been running ads for same-day services, and we've been running ads for puppies. Puppies is just doing amazing. Let's scale that up because we're slow now. You have the ability to say, okay, let's add more budget to this campaign because it's working wonderfully. If you don't have a way to drive people in the door and all of a sudden people stop coming in the door, you're now behind the ball and you need to get rolling. So I think creating a consistent way and figuring that out and saying, okay, we're going to figure out an Instagram strategy, or we're going to figure out a Facebook strategy, or we're going to figure out an AdWords strategy, or YouTube, or whatever it is that you want to be doing, figure it out and get it started. If you need any help with that, please let me know. A lot of times people ask if I help with that, and I do, absolutely. But really, I think it is going to be all coming down to being consistent and not starting and stopping, but giving yourself the ability to consistently go out, create content, and engage with your clients. And so if there's anything that I can do to help you, I would really, really love to do that. The best place to go is to the Veterinary Marketing Nerds Facebook group. Head on over there and be sure to join and request to join. It's completely free. And if there's anything that I can do for you, please don't hesitate to reach out. Again, I just want to say thank you so much for listening. And thanks for being a part of the podcast. I really hope that you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you on the next episode. Have a good one, everybody.